What if the most powerful empire the world had ever seen never found the cross? Imagine this. It's the 4th century. Rome rules from Britain to Syria, from the Rhine to the Nile. In our world, this is when Emperor Constantine sees a vision, converts to Christianity, and sets history on a path that leads to cathedrals, popes, and the faith of billions. But in this world, our alternate world, the vision never comes. Or maybe it's ignored. Maybe Constantine stays loyal to the old gods: Jupiter, Mars, Apollo. The temples stay open. The priests still chant. The ancient rituals go on. And with that one change, everything shifts. Christianity doesn't become the soul of the West. Instead, it becomes one voice among many. Small, struggling, possibly forgotten. So what does the world look like without a Christian Rome? What happens to Europe? To Islam? To America? What happens to ideas like forgiveness, sin, salvation, when they're not built into the structure of empire? This is the story of a world ruled by emperors, not bishops. A world where temples, not churches, define our skyline. A world where the Roman Empire never found the cross. History often turns on quiet moments. One man, one choice. And suddenly, the world is different. In 312 AD, Constantine marches toward Rome. On the eve of battle, he claims to see a sign, a cross in the sky, with the words, "In this sign, conquer." He paints the Christian symbol on his soldiers' shields. They win. And soon after, Christianity becomes legal across the Roman Empire with the Edict of Milan in 313 AD. That single act transforms a once persecuted religion into a rising power. But what if that vision never happened? Or what if Constantine saw something else? A flash of light, not in the shape of a cross, but a flame, a sword, or the sun itself. Maybe he puts his faith in Mithras, the god of warriors and light, already popular in the Roman army. Or maybe he stays true to the traditional Roman gods, Jupiter, Mars, and Venus. After all, they had served the empire for centuries. If Constantine doesn't convert, there is no state support for Christianity, no official protection, no imperial funding to build churches or copy sacred texts. Christianity remains underground, just another mystery cult among many. Without Constantine, there's no Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. No push to unify Christian doctrine. The religion likely fractures or fades under pressure. And if future emperors follow his example, staying pagan or choosing other gods, Christianity never rises to power. The Edict of Milan might never be written. The cross never becomes the empire's symbol. This is the fork in the road. One path leads to cathedrals, popes, and centuries of Christian rule. The other leads to a Roman Empire shaped by temples, sun gods, and philosophy. Because Constantine didn't just change religion, he changed civilization. What if he hadn't? In a world where Constantine never converts, the Roman Empire doesn't become Christian. The temples of Jupiter and Mars remain at the heart of cities. Emperors are still seen as semi-divine, blessed by the gods, and tasked with keeping the peace of the gods. The Pax Deorum. Religion is civic, not personal. You honor the gods not to save your soul, but to protect the state. The priesthood is political. Rituals are state-sponsored. Festivals mark the calendar. Saturnalia in winter, Lupercalia in spring. The Roman gods are not replaced, they are refreshed. New emperors dedicate new temples, adding layers to old traditions. But it's not just Roman gods that flourish. The empire, stretching from Britain to Egypt, becomes a marketplace of belief. Eastern cults, like those of Isis from Egypt or Cybele from Anatolia, continue to grow. Without Christianity suppressing rivals, these religions stay alive and even integrate into Roman culture. One of the strongest contenders is Mithraism, a religion based around the god Mithras, popular among Roman soldiers. It involves secret rituals, communal meals, and moral codes. In a world without Christian dominance, Mithraism might become the unifying spiritual glue of the empire. At the same time, Roman philosophy deepens its hold. Stoicism, with its teachings on reason, virtue, and endurance, becomes a guiding light for both leaders and citizens. Neoplatonism, a more mystical philosophy that blends Plato with spiritual ideas, gains even more traction. Its belief in a single source of all existence could serve as a philosophical bridge between the many cults. In this alternate Rome, there is no central church, no pope. But there is unity, not through dogma, but through shared ritual, tradition, and respect for diversity. Instead of suppressing difference, the empire absorbs it. There are no holy wars, no inquisitions, no heretics. Religion remains public and pluralistic, a stage for identity, not salvation. Even as the empire faces outside threats, it doesn't turn inward to one God. It turns outward, drawing strength from its ancient roots and its many faces. This pagan empire is not static. It's adaptable, alive, and it holds together not by belief in one truth, but by tolerance of many. In this world, the empire endures, not through the church, but through the gods of old and the wisdom they still offer. When Rome fell in our world, Christianity picked up the pieces. It preserved books, built schools, crowned kings, and unified Europe under a common faith. But in a world where Rome never adopted Christianity, the fall looks very different. And so does everything that follows. Without the church to fill the power vacuum, Europe fractures, not just politically, but spiritually and culturally. There's no single force linking the continent. No Latin-speaking clergy to keep records. No monasteries to copy texts. No bishops to guide kings. Instead, local pagan traditions return in full force. Germanic tribes like the Franks, Visigoths, and Saxons don't convert to Christianity because there's no powerful church urging them to. They keep their old gods, Thor, Woden, Freya. Their leaders don't become Christian monarchs. They remain tribal warlords with divine bloodlines and warrior cults. The result? Feudalism still emerges, but without the church's moral or legal framework. Lords rule by strength and heritage, not by divine right. Knights swear loyalty not on Bibles, but on swords, stones, and sacred oaths tied to nature or clan gods. Law, too, evolves differently. Without canon law, the church's legal system, Europe lacks a unifying legal code. Local customs reign supreme. One region might follow Roman law, another tribal law, another something entirely new. Justice is personal, not universal. Trials by ordeal or combat last longer. Courts are held under trees, not in cathedrals. Education becomes fragmented. In our timeline, monasteries preserved classical knowledge. But in this pagan world, philosophy survives only in elite circles. Stoic and Neoplatonic teachings pass down in secret schools, not churches. Literacy is rare, tied to nobility or temple scholars. Science stalls, not because of faith, but because there's no structured system to support it. And what of moral philosophy? Without Christianity's focus on sin, salvation, and universal compassion, Europe leans into honor, duty, and fate. Stoic virtues, courage, temperance, wisdom, guide behavior. But charity is local, not global. There is no command to love thy neighbor, only an expectation to protect kin and respect the gods. Still, all is not bleak. Art, architecture, and music continue to flourish, but inspired by myths, not gospels. Temples rise where churches might have stood. Murals depict gods, heroes, and stars, not saints and saviors. Europe becomes a mosaic of beliefs and customs, not a Christian civilization. There's more color, more chaos, less control, And while this world may lack the unity brought by Christianity, it also avoids its excesses. No crusades, no inquisitions, no wars over doctrine. Instead, Western civilization is born again. Not under a cross, but beneath a sky full of gods, many paths. It's a Europe shaped by memory, myth, and tradition, rewriting the very story of what it means to be Western. Without Constantine's support, Christianity never becomes the empire's chosen faith. There are no grand churches, no legal protections, no bishops in royal courts. So what happens to it? First, it shrinks. Christianity, once spreading fast in cities like Antioch, Ephesus, and Rome, retreats underground. It survives in secret gatherings, in homes, in catacombs, in whispers. It becomes a religion of the poor, the persecuted, and the patient. Without the Edict of Milan, persecution continues. Not constant, but enough to keep Christianity fragile. Some Roman emperors crack down, others ignore it. But without legal standing, Christianity remains on the margins. Over time, this pressure changes the faith itself. Cut off from power, it becomes more mystical, more fragmented. With no Council of Nicaea to unify beliefs, splinter groups grow. Some worship Christ as a man, others as pure spirit. Debates about the Trinity, the nature of Jesus, and salvation remain unresolved. Some branches may evolve into entirely new religions, Christian in origin, but unrecognizable in doctrine. Others blend with local beliefs, creating strange hybrids. Christ and Mithras, perhaps, or Mary worship mixed with fertility goddesses. There is no pope, no Vatican. Leadership is local, passed from teacher to teacher, not bishop to bishop. Women may play a larger role, especially in communities without rigid hierarchy. Christian texts survive, but not in massive volumes like the Bible. Instead, scattered scrolls and letters circulate quietly. Gospels are debated, not canonized. The story of Jesus is told in many ways, not one. Without Roman support, Christianity stays mostly Eastern. It flourishes in Syria, Armenia, and Ethiopia, places where it already had roots. But in the West, it struggles. Rome and Gaul remain pagan strongholds. Britain may never hear the gospel at all. By the time Islam rises in the 7th century, Christianity is not a global religion. It's a scattered, splintered faith, one among many. It survives, but not as a conqueror, as a remnant. And perhaps that makes it purer. Or perhaps it means it never fulfills its promise. Either way, it is not the same faith we know today. It is Christianity, rewritten. When Christianity fails to rise, the spiritual landscape of the world shifts dramatically. Mithraism is the first to rise. Already popular among Roman soldiers, it offers a disciplined, male-focused path centered on loyalty, sacrifice, and light. Without Christian competition, Mithras temples spread across the empire, from Londinium to Carthage. It may even become the empire's unofficial religion, guiding emperors, generals, and elites. Judaism, long marginalized under both pagan and Christian rule, sees a more complex fate. On one hand, without Christian anti-Semitism, there are fewer pogroms and forced conversions. But on the other, Judaism remains a small, ethnically bound religion, respected but isolated, protected by law but not embraced by empire. Zoroastrianism, the ancient faith of Persia, thrives longer. With no Christianized Rome to clash with, Sassanid Persia becomes the center of fire worship and dualist philosophy. The faith spreads eastward, perhaps influencing regions that, in our world, would later turn Islamic. And what of Islam? Its rise still comes in the 7th century, but it faces a different world. Without a powerful Christian Europe to resist it, early Islam may spread faster across the Mediterranean. North Africa, the Levant, even parts of Italy could fall under the crescent earlier and with less resistance. Islam becomes not a rival to Christendom, but to Mithraic Rome or a still pagan Europe. By the Middle Ages, the spiritual map of the world is unrecognizable. There are no Christian cathedrals, no holy crusades. Instead, the world is divided between sun gods, fire gods, ancient traditions, and a rising Islamic tide. The battle for souls continues, but it's fought on different ground, with different flags and different gods. Christianity's adoption by Rome wasn't just a shift in faith. It was a turning point for the world. Without it, temples stand where churches would rise. Emperors rule where popes once spoke. Morality, law, and culture evolve down unfamiliar roads. The cross in this timeline never becomes a symbol of power, only of memory. And so, we're left with a haunting question. What if the most powerful empire in history had chosen a different god? The answer isn't just about belief. It's about everything that came after, and everything that might never have been.